every single night, somewhere across the United States. Nearly half of all dog owners share their bed with their dog. Nearly half. Think about that number for just a moment, because it is not a small one. That is tens of millions of ordinary people, people just like you and me, pulling back the covers at the end of a long day and sliding over to make room for an animal who decided, out of every option available to them, that this was exactly where they wanted to be. But here is the question that almost none of those tens of millions of people ever actually pause to ask themselves. Why you, not the warm patch of carpet near the heating vent, where the air is soft and still? Not the familiar sofa cushion that still carries the impression of the body that sat there all evening. Not the quiet hallway, or the laundry room, or the corner behind the armchair where the light never quite reaches. You, of all the places in the house, of all the comfortable, warm, undisturbed spots a clever animal could find. Your dog comes to you. So what if the real answer has absolutely nothing to do with warmth, or habit, or simply not knowing any better? What if every single night your dog makes that walk across the floor and settles in beside you? They are actually sending you a message. Something layered and biologically deep and emotionally precise. Something that most owners have been quietly receiving for years without ever once recognizing it for what it truly is tonight. That changes for you. Because what your dog is genuinely communicating when they choose to sleep beside you is one of the most remarkable things that science has uncovered about the ancient, enduring bond that exists between humans and dogs. And when we reach number 7, which is what it actually means when a dog who always slept beside you suddenly, without warning, stops, you are going to understand your dog in a way that you simply never have before. Stay with me through this. Every part of it is worth your time. Part 1. It was never just about comfort, most people. When they think about why their dog sleeps with them, reach for the same explanation without even really thinking about it. The dog gets cold at night. The bed is warm and soft. That is the beginning and end of it. It sounds perfectly reasonable when you say it out loud. And for a long time, most of us have just accepted it and moved on without questioning it further. But the moment you actually sit down and think it through, the whole explanation starts to quietly fall apart at the seams. Here is the thing about dogs that most people underestimate. They are genuinely, extraordinarily skilled at finding warmth on their own terms. They know exactly where the afternoon sun pours through the window and pools in a warm, golden rectangle on the kitchen floor. They know the precise spot along the baseboard where the radiator pushes heat out in a steady, reliable wave. They know which sofa cushion still holds the warmth of the body that sat there for 2 hours watching television, even long after that person has gotten up, gone to the kitchen, and come back again. Warmth is never something a dog has to search very hard for. They have figured it out, and they have options, more than enough of them, scattered all throughout the house. So if warmth and comfort were truly all they were looking for, your dog would simply find the coziest spot available to them, lie down, and stay there contentedly all night long. But they do not do that, night after night, with quiet and steady consistency. They walk right past every single one of those warm, comfortable, perfectly reasonable options, and they choose to come to you. That is not a reflex response to temperature. That is not just following an old habit they have never bothered to break. That is a conscious, deliberate choice being made by an animal that has other options and is choosing not to take them. And here is why that choice carries so much more weight than most of us have ever stopped to appreciate. Sleep, for any animal that has ever lived on this earth, is the single most vulnerable moment in their entire existence. Every survival instinct that a dog carries inside them, even a dog who has never spent a single night outdoors in their life, even the most pampered, well-loved, deeply cared-for dog who has known nothing except warmth and kindness and a soft bed. All of those instincts are still alive and still running. Something very old and very deep inside them understands, without being taught, that sleep is the moment when danger can reach you. Sleep is the moment your senses go quiet and your guard drops all the way down. Sleep is the moment when you have no ability whatsoever to defend yourself or the ones you love. And yet, in spite of all of that ancient biological knowledge, your dog walks calmly past every quiet, safe, tucked away corner of your home and lies down right beside a human being. That is not about temperature. That is not about finding the softest surface available. That is a declaration of something much more profound and much more personal than most of us have ever given it credit for. Research into dog attachment behavior has shown consistently, across many studies and over many years, that dogs form deep and genuinely emotional bonds with the people they live with. Bonds that directly and meaningfully influence where a dog feels safe enough to fully let go of their vigilance and rest. When your dog chooses to sleep beside you, night after night, they are communicating something for which they have no other words, no other gesture, and no other way to make you understand. They are telling you, as clearly as any living creature can possibly tell another, you are the safest place I have ever known in my life. Part 2. They are syncing themselves to your heartbeat. Now here is where the science starts to move from something merely touching into something that is genuinely and deeply astonishing. Researchers who have spent years carefully measuring the physiological responses of dogs when they are in close contact with their owners uncovered something that most of the rest of us never get to hear about: cortisol, which is the body's primary stress hormone. The chemical that rises when we feel anxious or threatened or overwhelmed, dropped significantly in dogs when they were in direct physical contact with the particular person they were most deeply bonded to. Not just a little, significantly. And what made the finding even more striking was that the proximity alone was enough to produce that effect. There were no commands involved, no training exercises, no rewards being offered, just the simple, quiet fact of being close to the person they loved. But here is the part that most people never get to hear. The part that genuinely changes the way you think about what is happening when you and your dog sleep side by side. Exactly the same thing happens inside your own body. Stroking and maintaining close physical contact with a dog you are bonded to lowers cortisol in human beings just as reliably as it does in the dog. Your heart rate slows and settles into something steadier. Your blood pressure drops toward a gentler, more comfortable range. Your nervous system, which most of us keep quietly braced and half ready for whatever the next difficult thing is going to be, finally softens and lets some of that held tension go. Without either of you making any conscious decision about it. Without either of you even being fully awake. You are regulating each other, two entirely different species, lying in the dark together, quietly and automatically holding each other steady, night after night, over time. Your breathing patterns begin to find each other and synchronize. Your dog's body slowly learns the exact and particular rhythm of yours. the pace of the way you breathe in, the depth and timing of the way you breathe out, the distinctive, settled stillness that your body settles into when you are genuinely and deeply at rest. And when something shifts in that familiar rhythm, when you are restless with worry, when anxiety is working its way quietly through your chest and your shoulders, when you are unwell in a way that your own conscious mind has not yet fully registered, your dog feels it happening. They feel it before you have even acknowledged it to yourself. That is not simply a pet lying beside you out of warmth or long-standing habit. That is a bond that is functioning at a biological level, operating with a kind of quiet precision and devotion that most of us spend our whole lives looking for in other people. A bond so attentive and so steady that it keeps running faithfully, even through the hours when both of you are sound asleep. Part 3. They have assigned themselves a job. The next time your dog lies down beside you at night, before you close your eyes, take a moment to actually look at where they have chosen to position themselves. Are they settled in close against your feet? Heavy and warm and grounding? Are they pressed against the curve of your back? Solid and present behind you? Are they lying right beside your head, so close you can feel their breath against your hair? Are they facing the doorway, alert even in the quiet? Because that placement is not accidental, and it is not simply wherever happened to be the most comfortable spot on the bed. Every position your dog chooses when they lie down beside you carries a specific and deliberate meaning. One that is rooted in instincts so old they predate everything we know about dogs as the companions they have become for us today. Dogs are descended from pack animals. And in a pack living in the wild world, sleep was never a state of complete and total vulnerability. Members of the group would arrange themselves around the others during rest, positioning themselves near entry points and open spaces, staying attuned to sounds and shifts in the air, remaining ready to respond with speed and decisiveness before any threat could reach the more vulnerable members sleeping at the center. Your dog still carries that same wiring inside them, as surely and as naturally as they carry the color of their coat or the shape of their face. Nothing in their comfortable, well-fed, thoroughly domesticated life has erased it. When your dog lies down beside you at night, some part of them genuinely and sincerely believes that they are standing watch over the person they are responsible for. A dog who positions themselves near the bedroom door is quietly monitoring the most likely entry point, the place where anything unexpected would most probably come from. A dog who presses themselves against your back is covering the angle you cannot see, the side you are most naturally exposed on when you are lying still. A dog who settles at your feet is placing themselves at the precise point from which they can get up and move and respond with the greatest speed if something requires it. They know, in the practical, everyday part of their understanding, that this is a house and not a forest. They know that you live a safe and comfortable life, and that the threats their ancestors guarded against are not the threats you face. They understand the difference between a dangerous world and a protected one. But instinct is not something that clocks out at the end of the day and takes the night off. Something very deep in the structure of who they are says, with quiet and unwavering certainty, this human is part of my group, and I keep my group safe while they are sleeping. Would your dog actually be able to fight off a real intruder who came in the night? That is honestly hard to say, and it probably depends entirely on the dog. But in their own mind, and in the deepest part of what drives them, They have taken a post. They have claimed a role that nobody assigned to them and nobody asked them to take on. And they show up for it, without fail, every single night of their lives, expecting nothing from you in return. Every sleep position is telling you something specific. Once you understand what I'm about to share with you, you will genuinely never look at your sleeping dog quite the same way again. And I mean that in the best possible sense. Every position your dog chooses when they settle down beside you is not just a matter of comfort or routine. Each one is a message, specific and readable and completely honest. If you know what you're looking at, let us start with the curl. When your dog sleeps curled into a tight and tidy ball, their nose tucked toward their tail, their body pulled inward and compact, they are taking the position that keeps them most protected. That curled shape shields the abdomen, which is the softest and most physically vulnerable part of any animal's body. The part that carries vital organs and has no bone to protect it. If your dog curls up close beside you, but keeps their body contained within itself, that tells you something worth knowing. They feel safe and comfortable enough to be near you, close enough to touch, close enough to feel your warmth and hear your breathing. They trust you enough to close their eyes and let their guard down in your presence. But somewhere underneath all of that trust, running very quietly like a thread through fabric, there is still a thin layer of guardedness that is not quite released. The trust is genuinely there between you, solid and real. It simply has not yet opened all the way to its fullest depth. Now consider the sprawl. Legs stretched out loosely in every direction with no particular pattern, belly completely and openly exposed to the air, with no attempt to cover it or protect it. The whole body utterly soft and loose, without a single point of tension anywhere from nose to tail. This is the deepest, most complete form of trust that one living creature can show another. Every survival instinct that a dog is born carrying, every ancient biological voice inside them, tells them with great urgency to protect their belly. That particular instinct does not quiet down easily, and it does not simply switch off because life has become comfortable. It takes genuine and sustained feelings of safety, real emotional certainty, a deep and lasting sense of security that has been built over time, to silence it. A dog who stretches out wide and open beside you, belly up and unguarded, has silenced every single one of those instincts, every last one. That is not just a dog relaxing at the end of a long day. That is a dog who is telling you, without any reservation or qualification whatsoever, that they feel entirely and completely safe in your company. Now let us talk about the back to you position, because this one is widely misunderstood, and it causes more quiet hurt than it should. Many owners feel a small, involuntary sting when their dog turns away from them to sleep, as if the dog would rather look at the wall than look at the person lying right beside them. A quiet sense of rejection, mild but real, that creeps in without being invited. Please let that feeling go, because it is pointing you in exactly the wrong direction, in pack behavior, and in the language of animal social bonds. Turning your back to another member of your group is one of the highest and most sincere signals of trust that one animal can offer another. It says clearly, I do not need to watch you, because I already know what you are. It says, I am completely certain that you will not harm me while I am not looking. The bond between us is so solid and so settled that being vulnerable in front of you does not feel frightening at all. Your dog turning their back to you while they sleep is a profound and generous compliment. It is one of the most trusting things they can do. And most people, without ever knowing the difference, quietly receive it as an insult. And then there is the pressed-in position, which requires very little interpretation at all. When your dog wedges themselves as physically close to your body as they can possibly get, sometimes arranging themselves into positions that look genuinely uncomfortable just to close the last few inches of distance between you. There is no ambiguity in what they are saying. They want to be as close to you as the laws of physical space will allow. Not almost close. Not sort of close. As close as it is actually possible to be. This is not clinginess in the way we sometimes use that word, as though it were a flaw or a weakness to be corrected. This is not neediness or anxiety or a failure of confidence. This is pure, uncomplicated, completely wholehearted devotion, expressed in the most direct and honest way that a dog knows how to express anything at all. Part 5. They rewrote their internal clock for you. Dogs are not built for human schedules, not naturally, and not by any accident of evolution. Their ancestors were most sharply alert and most deeply active in the early morning light before sunrise and again in the long golden hour before dark. Those were the hunting hours, the times when their skills were most useful and the world was most navigable for an animal built the way they are built. That particular biological rhythm was shaped by tens of thousands of years of living by it, and it is written into them just as permanently and deeply as anything else that makes them who they are. There is absolutely nothing in a dog's natural design that should have any reason to align with a person who stays awake until 11 at night watching television, sleeps through the quiet, early hours of the morning, and runs on a daily schedule that their ancient ancestors would have found completely unrecognizable and more than a little baffling. And yet, that is exactly what happens. Dogs who have formed deep and lasting bonds with their people gradually, over months of living together, shift their entire pattern of activity to mirror and reflect the rhythms of the person they love most. They grow sleepier during the long late-night hours when you grow sleepy. They begin to stir and shift when you stir and shift in the early morning. They start to wake quietly a few minutes before your alarm goes off, as though they have memorized its schedule the way you have memorized theirs. They recognize the particular and specific sequence of small sounds and movements that you go through each evening as you wind down and get yourself ready for bed. They track all of it with an accuracy and a consistency that genuinely catches new dog owners off guard, because it does not look like something that could have been learned. And yet clearly it has been. You cannot teach this to a dog by sitting down with them and working through it deliberately. There is no training exercise that restructures the circadian rhythm of a living creature and bends it towards someone else's daily pattern. This is something that accumulates slowly and quietly, through months and then years of close and constant attention, through the kind of sustained observation that only happens when someone genuinely cares about the object of their attention. Your rhythm became theirs, not because anyone required it of them, not because it was easier or more convenient in any practical sense, but simply because they wanted to be present where you were, at the same moments that you were there. An internal biological clock that was shaped across thousands of generations of evolution, quietly, willingly, and lovingly bending itself toward the shape of your particular daily life. Part 6. They feel your stress before you know you are feeling it. Have you ever come home at the end of a day that ground you down slowly and thoroughly? A day when nothing went quite right, and the weight of it followed you all the way to your front door. And you said nothing about it to anyone, not a single word. And yet before you had even set down your bag or taken off your coat, your dog was already there beside you, pressing close, reading you with those quiet and steady eyes before you sat down in your usual chair, before you let out a breath or let your shoulders drop. Before you did anything at all except walk through the door and stand there in your own hallway. Most people smile at this and think of it as their dog simply being sweet and attentive and loving. Which is not wrong, because they are all of those things. But that is not actually the full explanation for what is happening in that particular moment. What is happening is that your dog read you completely and accurately the very instant you stepped through the door. Not because they saw your expression, though they did. Not because they noticed your posture, though they noticed that too. Research conducted by scientists who study the bond between dogs and people has demonstrated clearly that dogs are capable of detecting changes in human cortisol levels through scent alone, before any other signal has had time to register. When stress begins moving through your body chemistry shifts in ways that are real and measurable and specific. The balance of hormones in your system changes. The composition of your perspiration changes at a molecular level. The subtle biological signals your body gives off continuously into the air around you change in patterns that no human being standing next to you would ever consciously notice or be able to name. But your dog's nose, which is estimated to be somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive and more precise than your own, catches every one of those changes immediately and without effort. And that is only one layer of what they are reading in you. Beyond everything they are detecting through scent, your posture has shifted in the particular way it shifts when you are carrying something heavy. The rhythm and depth of your breathing has changed in the way that it changes when something is pressing on your chest. The micro expressions that move across your face, so fast and so small that no other human being in the room would ever catch them consciously, are telling a story your dog is reading in real time. Your dog is processing every single one of those signals simultaneously, weaving them together into a complete and accurate picture of exactly how you are doing in this moment. And here is where the connection to sleeping beside you becomes directly and importantly relevant. Night after night, across months and years of lying beside you in the dark, your dog has been quietly and painstakingly building a detailed internal map of what your baseline actually feels like when everything is as it should be. They have memorized your resting heart rate, the particular pace and depth that your breathing finds when genuine rest has taken hold. They carry an intimate knowledge of the specific stillness that your body settles into when nothing is wrong and nothing is pressing on you and sleep has come cleanly and fully. So when something shifts in that familiar pattern, even something subtle, even something you yourself have not yet fully recognized or named, they already know. They knew before you did. This is the reason dogs become more present and more physically attentive and more reluctant to leave your side when their person is unwell, or grieving something, or quietly carrying a burden that has not yet been spoken out loud. They are not making an educated guess based on general observation. They are not simply following an instinctive emotional response to something they cannot quite identify. They are responding to real and measurable and specific biological changes in the person they have been studying with complete devotion every single night for as long as they have known you. Part 7. When they suddenly stop. Pay attention. This is the part I asked you to stay for at the very beginning. And I want you to read it carefully. Because this is the part that matters most, and the part that most dog owners get most thoroughly wrong. A dog who has slept beside you every night for months, or for years, or for most of their life, does not simply stop one evening without a reason behind it. They do not change that habit casually. The way a person might rearrange their furniture or decide to try a different route to work. When that change happens, there is always a reason. And that reason is almost always something that deserves your genuine and thoughtful attention. Begin with the most important possibility, and do not rush past it. If your dog is on the older side of their life, and they begin seeking solitude when they sleep, pulling away from the familiar spot beside you and finding quiet corners or unused rooms they never showed interest in before, the first thing you should consider is their physical health. Before anything else on this list, dogs withdraw instinctively when they are in pain or when they are feeling unwell in a way that has not yet been clearly visible to the people around them. It is an ancient and deeply ingrained survival mechanism, one that is older than domestication itself, older by far than the bond that first formed between dogs and human beings. The instinct says, do not show the weakness. Do not let the vulnerability be visible. Pull back, be still, and keep the suffering private. A dog who retreats from their sleeping place, who creates physical distance where there was none before, may be telling you something about what is happening inside their body that they simply have no other way to communicate to you. A conversation with your veterinarian, even if you are not entirely certain something is wrong, is always worth having. Always. Do not let the uncertainty talk you out of it. Beyond the question of physical health, take a careful and honest look at what else may have changed in the environment around them recently. A new person has come into the household. Someone your dog is still working out how to feel about. A new animal has arrived and shifted the social balance of the home in ways that feel significant to your dog, even if they seem minor to you. A change in daily routine that feels small and easy from where you are standing is registering as something much more consequential from where your dog is standing. Dogs are deeply and genuinely sensitive to territorial changes and shifts in the social dynamics of their home. And those changes have a way of rippling through their behavior in patterns that are not always immediately obvious or easy to connect back to their source. And sometimes, the reason your dog has pulled away is simply emotional. And it deserves just as much care as any physical explanation would. If something startled or frightened your dog while they were in the bedroom, if a moment of tension or conflict occurred in that particular space, if an experience of any kind led them to associate that room or that situation with something that felt unsafe or distressing, they may be creating physical distance as a way of protecting themselves emotionally, not out of stubbornness or bad temper, not out of indifference to you or to the bond you share, out of a genuine need to feel safe, expressed in the only language available to them. The response to all of these possibilities, whatever the specific reason turns out to be, comes down to the same essential truth. Pay attention. Your dog chose to sleep beside you, night after night, because you were the safest and most trustworthy place they had ever found in the whole of their experience. If something has shifted that, they are not pulling away to hurt you or to punish you or to send you a message of rejection. They are communicating, the only way they know how, that something in their world needs attention. So watch them with the same quality of care and attention they have always given you. Listen carefully to what the change is telling you, and if they need your help to find their way back to feeling safe and settled again, do that work alongside them, patiently and without rushing. Because that nightly ritual of lying down beside you was never a small or ordinary thing to your dog. Not once. Not for a single night of it. Every position they chose as they settled in beside you carried a meaning that was real and specific and deeply felt. Every moment when they pressed themselves close and closed the last bit of distance between you was a declaration that came from somewhere very genuine inside them. Every slow and steady breath they drew, synchronized without effort to yours in the soft darkness of the room, was a choice they made freely, from a place of complete and wholehearted trust. And that choice, made again and again and again, without hesitation, every single night of the time you have shared together, was always, without exception, you. If something in the way you are thinking about your dog has shifted after hearing all of this, please subscribe and come back. Every video on this channel is built carefully and honestly on what the science actually says and what the research actually shows. Not on what sounds comforting, not on what we would like to believe, but on what is genuinely and verifiably real. Because your dog has been paying close and devoted attention to you for as long as they have known you. They deserve the same quality of understanding from you. And honestly, so do you.